Listening to that, Alia Butt, psychotherapist and part of Keep Our NHS Public. From what you're hearing so far, does it give you cause for hope, or where do you stand on that?
I think any sort of commitment to decreasing the waiting list is really exciting and important for anybody in the NHS when we've been working in a really, under-resourced workforce, really, and under-resourced NHS. I think, really, though, we need to think about investment in building back the NHS rather than partnership with private sector treatment centres and things like that, because that doesn't actually show to be effective and it's incredibly costly.
What does that investment look like, then? Where would you put the money?
I think, we've had this huge drive to dismantle the NHS through austerity and things like that. I think more money in the NHS, which obviously isn't music to anybody's ears. However, we've seen lots of that money being taken out of the NHS through private tendering and other things like that. And that's why reform isn't always the best option. Whereas we need to see serious funding, pay settlement to encourage more recruitment and retention. I think these ideas around thing are really, really, really critical to what goes on in the NHS when we've had so many people leaving the NHS over the past 5 years, for example.
You're a professional in it. Is it all down to money?
I think it's down to the way money is spent and the way money is invested in and around the NHS. That's what I think it is. I think when you have private companies, we saw it over the pandemic, didn't we? So much money was wasted. And that's really sad at a time where we're struggling in the NHS critically. We have, as you mentioned, so many people dying unnecessarily. We have unavoidable deaths, 250 weekly. And that's really scary and unnecessary, I would say, in this country where we have seen the best health service in the world in the early 2000s. And there's no reason for us to not be at that level, quite frankly, when we have so much money that could be going into the NHS and not being, siphoned out of it, but very much recycled within the NHS.
Thank you for being on the show this morning, and thank you for the work you do within the NHS. Alia Butt is a psychotherapist and part of Keep Our NHS Public.